Welcome. Welcome. We are very, very pleased to welcome Governor Inslee to the largest Democratic Party club in the United States of America. And also the universe. So we also want to welcome and acknowledge presidents of our partner clubs, La Marinda, Tracy, where are you? Tracy Brogg, right there, and Katie Rickliffs. John Hall is here. Sue Hamill, where are you? Diablo Valley. Who else? Do we have any other club people? These are our partners, and so we are working really well together to win and to expand our great blue bubble to the entire continent. So, Governor Jay Inslee is an international leader on climate change, as we all know, and he's dedicated his political career to fighting for our planet, for all of us, for our children and our grandchildren. He co-founded and co-chairs the bipartisan 20-state U.S. Climate Alliance, to which, happily, our lovely state of California and our wonderful new governor, Newsom, belong. The alliance continues the work of the Paris Climate Agreement, thank heavens, despite the destructive withdrawal from it by the person who happens to live in the White House temporarily. Oh, yes. So, come on, Southern District of New York, you can do it too. Okay. So, in his home state of Washington, Governor Inslee has accomplished so much. A new clean energy fund, which invested more than $100 million in innovative energy technologies and growth of energy businesses and jobs. He signed the largest, greenest transportation infrastructure investment package in the state's history. Washington has a very aggressive electric vehicle initiative, and it is a leader in electric vehicle sales. I hope you saw all the charging stations here. I mean, we have a lot. We are so ahead of the game. And also our solar-powered buildings that Sustainable Rossmoor and all of us have been working so hard to achieve. In addition to his fight to save Earth, the only home we'll ever know, Governor Inslee has championed healthcare by passing the first public option and securing healthcare for 800,000 Washingtonians. He has also passed legislation on gender pay equity. Yes. The highest minimum wage and the largest pay increase for teachers in the country. So we very much want Governor Inslee to continue bringing his message to the country on the debate stage. So let me ask Marcia McLean, who's the president of Sustainable Rossmoor, to say some more about that.
Thank you, Katha. Sustainable Rossmoor is a club here in Rossmoor. We have over 160 residents who are committed to a sustainable planet. In the past 4 years, we have worked with the JRF board to establish the solar array now under construction that will provide 2/3 of the power for the Rossmoor common buildings. We wrote and worked and helped pass California's law AB 634 to make it easier for condo and co-op owners to install solar panels on their rooftops. We have held annual Earth Day and month celebrations to educate Rossmoor residents on ways to better care for the planet. We've sponsored free films from Rossmoor, here in Rossmoor, once a month that focus on sustainability. We launched and support our famous Trash Talkers, the diligent group of workers who have helped to reduce, reuse, recycle, and rerot more here in Rossmoor. And lastly, we've come up with upping your game, developing new ways to confront and reduce climate change. Because we really only have 12 years to help end the climate crisis, we need to come together to defeat this crisis for our generation, our children, our grandchildren, and our great-grandchildren. It must be a top priority for our next president. We need a climate champion to advocate for us on the debate stage. To qualify for the fall debate, Governor Inslee needs 130,000 unique donors. It can be any amount of money at all. There's no cap. Will you help us reach that goal? If you haven't contributed or even contributed, help him to continue to spread his message. There will be volunteers who will be available at the end of today's event to take your checks. Thank you very much for coming. And Katha?
Isn't it wonderful to live here? We're so good. We're leaders in so many ways, and especially when in our sustainability projects. So we do not want to ever put a plastic cup in the wrong bin, please. But the most serious crisis of our time, to save our planet, just as Marcia said. So it's great pleasure. I want to introduce to you Governor Jay Inslee, the climate champion for us. Please welcome him.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I am so impressed with this community. It's the first time I've been here. Marcia, I know Al Gore, and you are on co-equal with Al Gore on your leadership, and I want to thank you for your leadership and the whole community. I just met Kevin, who's been a great leader at Walnut Creek doing this local leadership. You know, Trudy, for a long time, I said the other day, I said, where would you like to go? A place we've never been. And she said Rome, and I said, to hell with Rome. I'm taking her to Rossmoor next time I'm on a vacation. The good things are happening here. I want to get something off my chest, if I can, because I've been asked this question about 4 times today in a number of events around the Bay Area. I want to say this, and you can take this to the bank. In November 2020, the Democratic Party of the United States of America is going to be unified in beating Donald Trump more than we've ever been in human history. This is going to be a unified party. And I think that's important to have confidence in ourselves. Whoever the nominee is, we're going to be there for that nominee. Now, I have a nominee I'd like to nominate for that today. But whoever it is, I feel really good about this. I'm going to deviate, if I may, from my kind of normal stump speech. I've been in the stump for a few months now, because this is a unique audience, and it's one that I feel a unique kinship with. And so I'm going to talk with you as a member of your tribe, if you will, because I'm a member of the Woodstock generation. And So I want to talk to you as a fellow member of the Woodstock generation. The other day I was thinking about 50 years ago Saturday when I watched on an 8x10-inch black and white television screen. I was at my night job. I had 2 jobs. I worked my way through college. And Trudy and I were just talking about that. And we were talking about that moment and how we felt at that moment. We felt confident in America's ability to lead. We felt united around a common purpose. We felt that we had a unique position in the course of humanity as where America fit in working with the rest of the world, because we saw ourselves as leaders. And we felt very unbounded. We felt we were not bound by any laws of gravity. And so it was a particularly magic moment. And we were talking about how that moment really fit as a parable possibly for this moment. Because it is my belief that we have to foster the same degree of confidence, the same degree of a can-do attitude, the same degree of being unified around a noble national mission as when we felt on that day. And I believe if we have that same degree of confidence, we will do what the United States needs to do right now. And that is, we need to make defeating the climate crisis the #1 priority of the United States. And we will achieve. And Trudy, my wife of 46 years, said something very compelling. We were talking about how to talk about this issue, and she says, you know what I think you need to say, Jay, is you need to remind Americans that we still have the right stuff. And you remember the right stuff is what the test pilots had that they all said they needed to go to the moon. And I think that's a message that we need to the United States. And it's a message that I am carrying in running for President of the United States. Now, I have believed this for some time. I ran for Congress in 1992, and I defeated a Republican in a 65% Republican district. And one of the things I ran on is the need to reduce carbon dioxide pollution. So I've been at this for a long time. And I have believed and had confidence in Americans' ability to do this for a long time. 12 years ago, I wrote a book called Apollo's Fire, Igniting America's Clean Energy Economy. And basically that was a vision statement of how we could build millions of jobs while building a clean energy economy. And by the way, the movie rights are still available if there's anybody. I was at Jane Fonda's house last night and I offered her the screenplay. She wouldn't accept it. I don't know what happened. But this is something I believed for a long time. And right now, I believe is a magic moment and a magic opportunity in American history. Because there are two dynamic things happening right at the right moment. One, Americans are now understanding the urgency of defeating the climate crisis. And frankly, that has not always been the case. Since I founded the U.S. Climate Alliance with Jerry Brown, who, by the way, is a fantastic leader, and I just loved working with Jerry Brown. Since I wrote the book, climate change was always a chart on a graph, right? It was parts per million of CO2 going up. It was an abstraction. Now it's people seeing Paradise, California burn to the ground. It's seeing the floods in the Midwest. It's Miami, where the day we landed in Miami for the first debate, it was the hottest day in Miami history on that date, and the Everglades were on fire. 42,000 acres of a swamp were on fire. Now, when your swamps are burning in America, you got a problem. And people are now understanding this. So we have a wave that has hit the apex of Americans' concern for this issue. And Americans want action on this issue. And we're going to give them some action by giving them a president that will make this job one for the United States of America. And that is why I'm running. I essentially have loved being governor. I've been very successful, as was indicated in that very gracious introduction. But a few months ago, Trudy and I were thinking about this, and I reached a conclusion, and that was that on my last days on earth, I wanted to be able to look at my 3 grandkids in the eye and said I did everything humanly possible to prevent their lives from being degraded by the climate crisis. And happily, we now have another wave that is cresting, and that is the wave of technological progress, which is demonstrating our ability to build a clean energy economy. Now, Donald Trump is wrong on this. He is wrong when he says wind turbines cause cancer. We know they cause jobs. That's what wind turbines cause. And we Democrats know that the next great economic leap forward in America is to fulfill our destiny to build a clean energy economy and put 8 million people to work. And I have a plan to do that. Now, for those small-minded pessimists who believe that we cannot grow an economy, they should have been following me around as I've run for president. When I've gone to the Des Moines Area Community College in Iowa and talked to Dave, who's in the wind turbine technician program, where over 30% of Iowa's electricity comes from wind turbines. To Michigan, where I'm going next week to have a debate where UAW union members are making electric cars. And by the way, when we put people to work, we're going to make sure they have the chance to be union members as well. The union movement. The union movement needs to be reinvigorated, and I have a plan to change the collective bargaining rules so that we can reverse the Reagan-era attack on unions and put people back to work getting raises. And that's what we need to work on in this state, or in this country. It's in Grays Harbor, Washington, where we're making biofuels, in Moses Lake, Washington, where we're spinning carbon fiber that goes into electric cars. This is a growth opportunity across the United States. And for those who say this is an hallucination, it's actually a reality. And I'll tell you this, the statistics bear this out. Today, clean energy jobs are growing twice as fast as the United States economy. This is the growth opportunity for the United States. All we need is somebody in the White House to push the go button on the clean energy economy. And I have a plan to do that. And it's a pretty comprehensive, robust plan. And I'm proud of it, I think rightfully so. It's been called the gold standard of climate plans by Ocasio-Cortez, Greenpeace, the SEAL Group, Data for Progress. All of these groups have evaluated all of the prospective candidates' proposals. And I think it's great that essentially all of the candidates on the Democratic stage have said that we ought to do something about climate change. But we ought to do more than just something. We ought to do that which is scientifically required. And my plan is unique. Here's what the science tells us. We have no choice but to get off of coal-based electricity in the next 10 years. We have no choice but to end our dependence on fossil fuels in the next decade and a half. We have no choice but start driving electric and biofuel cars in the next 10 years. And there is only one plan that will guarantee Americans in this regard. Here's what I believe. We cannot just have a middle ground on this. We've got to have the gold standard so we can defeat the climate crisis, and that's what I've brought to the table. So that's why I'm running. That's fundamentally why I'm running. Now, this is not the only work as I've done as governor. I think Washington State is an electoral argument to defeat Donald Trump, and I'll tell you why. There is a fundamental difference between ourselves and Donald Trump. He believes in the trickle-down theory of economic progress. If you just give billionaires giant tax cuts, their munificence will kind of fall like gentle snowflakes on all of the poor dispossessed, and everything will be fine. We have a different view. It is our view that we want to build a middle-out economy where you build the middle class, where you respect diversity and realize that diversity is a strength, not a vice, okay? Where we have a different view of economic growth. So I just want to mention some of the things we've done in the state of Washington, some of which is mentioned in my introduction. We're radicals in Washington State. We believe women should be paid the same as men. So we've adopted a regulation to protect gender pay equity. We believe that large tech companies should not be able to abuse this. So I was the first governor to sign a net neutrality bill to protect us and to protect our net neutrality. We believe in the value and power, the transformative power of public education. Now I believe this because my dad was a biology teacher, and I meet people all over the state of Washington whose lives were changed by my father. And frankly, it's very gratifying when you hear that about your dad. And I understand that the number one important thing in public education is a quality teacher in the classroom. So this year, I'm happy to report that I fought for and won the largest educator pay raise in the United States of America, 31% of additional state wages. We believe in the continued march to universal health care, which we know is a basic right in this nation. So not only have we been successful in implementing Obamacare, and I think one of, if not the most successful state, we now have 800,000 people covered. We've been very successful in keeping medical inflation low, but we know we're not done. So I'm proud to say that I'm the first governor in United States history to create a public option so that people have a state-sanctioned plan so everyone can get coverage. Now we know that's not the end of the trail, because we need a national plan where everyone who wants Medicare can get access to that so that we can get to universal coverage. But it is not just standard health care that we need to care about. We need to care about the folks who are lucky enough to need a little care at some point in their life. And that is, I hope, all of us. Because if we're lucky, we will have someone help us out a little bit so that we can maintain the dignity and independence of our lives. To do that, we need some financial help. And frankly, this is one of the largest problems in the United States, which we've kind of ignored, frankly. And as a 68-year-old person, I don't think that should be ignored. So we have created a safety net for people as they age, so that people can age in dignity, in financial stability, including aging where you want, at home where you want, and not be forced into the indignity of poverty. So I'm proud to tell you that Washington State has created the very first long-term care plan to provide people's long-term care needs in American history, and we need to do that nationally for every American. So here's the point about Washington State. Every governor is proud of their state, rightfully so. But I think Washington has a key to defeating Donald Trump, and here's why. If you ask Donald Trump if you do all of these things we have now done since I've been a governor, of embracing progressive ideas, of being the first governor, I'm proud of this, to stand up against Donald Trump's Muslim ban. I was proud to stand up against that. If you embrace these progressive ideals and effectuate them, what will happen? He would tell you you will crater your economy. It's impossible to pay people a good wage and have long-term care and treat women fairly and pay teachers adequately. That would be impossible, and if you did that, business people would flee your state, and you'd have massive unemployment, and you might as well put up the for sale sign in your state. Well, guess what, Donald Trump? We've done all these things, and we have created the best economy in the United States with the fastest GDP growth and the biggest wage growth in the United States. I've got a message to Donald Trump. Progressive democratic values work. That's a fundamental message for Donald Trump. So I am looking forward to this tussle. I hope that you can consider helping this issue. I need 130,000 donors, and everybody in this room has a First Amendment right of free speech. And that free speech includes sending $1 to jinslee.com. So if you desire to do so, you would be welcome in that regard. Well, listen, that's my story. I'm sticking to it. I hope we have some easy questions here and general comments.
They're very easy. You know this is the capital of pre-existing conditions.
Oh, no, I don't see any pre-existing conditions out there. I see great pickleball players and bocce ball players,
that too,
golf players and tennis players and bird watchers.
And two golf courses. So thank you so much.
Did they actually keep score here at this course? Do you have to keep score?
Some do.
Well, Donald Trump will never be allowed to play here then, I'll tell you that, that's for sure.
So as you can imagine, there are several questions about climate change, but also focused on our national foreign policy, our national security. And so given where we are right now, it seems on the brink of something with Iran, for example, the nuclear threat in this world. So national security is also a climate change problem. So would you comment on that?
Well, first off, it very much is. And, you know, people have said, is climate change a single issue? No, it's all the issues. It's economic development and economic loss. It's healthcare issues where people are now getting Lyme disease in New Hampshire where they never got it before. And it is a national security threat. We know that this is going to precipitate mass migrations by the millions of people, and that is already happening. We've seen the drought in North Africa result in instability in that region and in some ways associated with increased violence. And the Pentagon and the intelligence officials have repeatedly told Donald Trump that this is a major national security threat. both by creating additional violence and mass migration. And the Pentagon has identified billions of dollars of infrastructure. Look, all the dry docks they have are going to be flooded, if you will, because of rising sea level. So this is a major national security threat. And if that's what you care about, I hope that you will join us in this effort against the climate crisis. Now, you've asked about foreign policy, and I'll just take a moment to address some larger constellation of issues. I'll just start with Iran. I've seen this movie before, and that was the Iraq War. And I was one of the earliest opponents of the Iraq War. I was actually the first 4 members that started the Iraq effort to stop the war, because I saw an American president who was fanning the flames of war, acting irresponsibly in a way that was not in our best interest. And it was deeply painful then, and is still deeply painful now, that we were not able to stop that loss with so many catastrophic losses to our people and people in the region. I do not want to see that movie again, because that movie would be totally unnecessary, and here's the reason why. I'm an American who believes when we enter an agreement, you follow it. Our nation had an agreement. Our nation had an agreement with Iran, a perfectly enforceable agreement to prevent that nation from obtaining fissionable material. And that is a worthwhile goal for our national security. It was being followed. It was being monitored. It had the whole rest of the world in an alliance to prevent Iran from becoming a nuclear power. And it was working. But because Donald Trump cannot stand anything that Barack Obama accomplished, and because he's got the same people who gave us the Iraq War in his administration, he has now created an unnecessary potential tensions and violence with that nation. It is time to get a president who will restore order and stability and an agreement with Iran to prevent a war in that region. That's what I believe. Now, on the broader context of foreign policy, I think we all understand the fundamental difficulty of Trump, and that is that he fundamentally believes for him to win, somebody has to lose. We understand the power of alliances that make us more effective and more powerful when we work together. So he hurt our ability to work together when he pulled out of the Paris Agreement. He hurt our ability to put pressure on North Korea when he created unnecessary tensions with our alliance. He hurt our ability to constrain his good friend Vladimir Putin in Russia when he damaged our ability to be effective in NATO. I believe the United States national security will become stronger and more effective when we have a presidents who restore our alliances around the world so we can protect our people. That's fundamentally what I believe. So that's a quick rundown of foreign policy.
Perfect. This is a money question.
I'm in favor of that. Yeah.
We want to be moral capitalists. So, Shell Oil. This is a long question. Shell Oil tried to start developing renewable energy, but their stock price dropped over a going concern that they would not be able to operate the next year as they did in the current year. Can you deal with Wall Street? And on this accounting, on making it, what's in it for you to cooperate and really work on alternative energy sources?
Well, look, our system can be magnificent in marrying capital with very skilled people and entrepreneurs to create whole new amazing things, and we're doing it big time. But when you have rules that allow our system to be abused, things go haywire. And today we have a system that is massively out of balance. And it's pretty obvious why. We have allowed polluting industries to use our atmosphere, and we only have one. We have exactly one atmosphere. And we have allowed the polluting industries to use it as their dumping ground, their sewage system, their garbage dump, in infinite amounts at zero cost. So they are using up the carrying capacity of our atmosphere, and you know what they're paying to do it? When you and I go to the dump, it costs us, what, $50, $60, right? to take our stuff to the dump. But these industries use the atmosphere as a dump in infinite amounts at zero cost. And this is the concept of externalities that I studied when I studied economics back in the day. And when you have a system like that, guess what's happened? People put too much garbage in the atmosphere. And people don't make investment decisions that are healthy for all of us. We simply have to right that economic imbalance in the system. And we have to, by regulatory systems and pricing systems, make sure that investment decisions take that into consideration when they make investments. So I have a plan to do that. And when we do that, we're going to have investments to start to flow more into the non-polluting systems, the solar industry, the wind industry, energy efficiency, electric cars. And by the way, for those people who say we can't make a transportation system that is different than the one we look at today, they say, oh, we can't make electric cars en masse. I would point out something. We can do amazing things in this nation. I drove over the bridge. My dad served in the Navy in World War II. He ran small ships or boats in San Francisco Harbor. And he was successful. Not a single enemy ship made it into San Francisco Harbor. We're very proud of his achievements. And so I was thinking about World War II when I was driving over here. People say we can't make electric cars in large numbers. Think about this. In 1940, we made 70 Jeeps. The entire industrial system of the United States made 70 Jeeps. 4 years later, 4.5 years later, we had made 645,000 Jeeps. And the reason we did that is Uncle Sam said we were going to do this. Now, when Uncle Sam says something, so far, things have worked. Uncle Sam said to the auto industry, you need to put in seat belts. And we put in seat belts. Uncle Sam in the first Earth Day said you need to put in catalytic converters so we don't have so much smog on our atmosphere. And the auto industry said we can't do it, and they did it, and we have cleaner air. When Uncle Sam speaks, we will get this job done. We will have electric cars by the masses, and we're going to keep this air cleaner. That's what I believe. We're going to get this job done.
This speaks to Tom Friedman's recent op-ed piece about a gigantic national effort, celebrities involved or whatever, a Marshall Plan type of effort. How in the world, I mean, we would love to be part of that. How can we make that happen? Will it take a new president? Can grassroots help begin that effort? What can we do about that?
Elect Jay Inslee, case closed. That's all you got to do. Problem solved. There are some other things that can help besides a president. Look, we need to win a couple seats in the U.S. Senate. We need to do that. We need to keep Nancy Pelosi doing her spectacular work. I'm her huge, huge fan. But we have to do something else, and I am fairly unique amongst all the candidates in saying this. Senator Mitch McConnell Senator Mitch McConnell has prided himself, calling himself the Grim Reaper of all progressive policies. It is a bad idea to give the Grim Reaper a big blade. And we have given him a big blade to cut down any progressive progress in this country, and that's the filibuster. And I know this, if you want to say you're serious about passing climate change legislation, you have to be for getting rid of the filibuster. You simply have to be. And so far, frankly, I'm disappointed with my colleagues. There's only one other candidate who's agreed with me that we need to get rid of the filibuster. That's Senator Warren, and I appreciate being in alliance with her. She would be a good second choice for president, by the way. I get in trouble making jokes, actually. How about a round of applause for Elizabeth Warren? Let's hear her. She's doing great work. No, but she and I do agree, and I'm serious about this because I hear all these bold aspirations of the other candidates, and I know they're sincere, and I know they're heartfelt, But there's no way in hell we're going to get anything done unless you get rid of the filibuster. So I really believe this is something we have to do, and that's very, very important. When we do, good things are going to happen.
Okay. And the great thing is we have absolutely wonderful candidates, especially you. So we have...
I do want to say this. I think you're right. We do have an incredible array of talent. And I want to just tell you, no matter who our nominee, I'm going to be back. I'm going to be working for them every single day to elect them as President of the United States, wherever this is.
So we have some questions about healthcare, because healthcare plans are all over the place as far as the candidates are concerned. They go everywhere from Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All, which many think is impossible to just enact immediately, to public option, Medicare X, and so on. So taking the Affordable Care Act, is that working in Washington? Is that something public option was added to that, or how did that work?
So what we did is we added a public option on top of Obamacare, which is basically a state-sanctioned plan that will be available in every single place in the state of Washington, that we believe is very important for two reasons: both to give access to people everywhere in the state of Washington, so we can have access to universal health care everywhere in the state of Washington, number one. And number two, we also think it'll be very helpful in driving down costs. It's not just access that's a problem. Cost is a huge problem, and I know we've all experienced that. And so we believe by bringing the power of a state-purchased system, we can use our scales of economy to ratchet down the cost increases that we are being exposed to. And federally, we need to do that because we need to rein in the cost of pharmaceuticals by allowing importation and having negotiation with the pharmaceutical companies so we can rein down those prices as well. Now, I don't think a state-by-state way to go about this is perfect. I think we need a national policy. And what I would propose is what you might call, and this is just a shorthand, of Medicaid for all who want it. Medicare has been extremely successful, and we need to transition to give people an option to have the Medicare system. Now, the fault line to some degree that is amongst the candidates is, what do we do with the people who would prefer to maintain their private insurance policies? My view is I would prefer to allow them, if they decide to do so, to maintain their private insurance policies. And one of the reasons I believe that is that we've had a lot of union people who have foregone wage increases in order to get really sort of rich health care benefits. And I don't want to take those benefits away from them when they didn't get the wage increases that they sort of went by the wayside. So we're going to have this discussion, but one way or another, we're going to get universal coverage. We are committed to that.
So at our southern border, and Texas and Arizona and possibly in Washington, we have a terrible refugee crisis. And so we have questions about that, and also about racial imbalance, because I think they're tied together. So it is a racist kind of issue that is manifesting itself both with the Hispanic population there and the African American or other color populations here. So what do we do about the border crisis? What can we do?
Well, I'm going to work from short term to long term. Short term, we need to simply stop Donald Trump's inhumanity that he has foisted upon us. And so, as a governor, I understand, there are problems. You can't solve all the problems overnight. But he has intentionally made this worse. And this is what is so maddening to me. He is intentionally creating inhumane conditions at the border for a variety of reasons. His intentional decision to separate children from their parents was not necessary, but it was intended to inflict distress on these children, which to me is truly inhumane. Because children at these ages that have that kind of trauma, sometimes it lasts their entire lifetime. And he continues in this policy. He tries to say he doesn't. But when you incarcerate unnecessarily people who legally have a right to a hearing, they legally, under American law, have a right to a hearing to seek asylum. That is not necessary. During the Obama administration, we had a program where if we simply allow people to be free with their children, pending their asylum hearing, 99% of them come back for their hearing and follow whatever happens at the hearing. That's what we ought to be doing first, to stop separating children from their parents and stop cramming people so they can't even sit down in a holding cell. This is not America. We are better than this. And I believe everybody agrees with me in this room. But then we have to have more. Obviously, we need more long-term solutions. And that doesn't mean we don't have border enforcement. I believe in having some degree of meaningful border and having an immigration policy that has a border. But you do not have to be inhumane to have a functioning border. Then we have to care for our dreamers. And our dreamers are some of the most inspirational people in my state. These are young people. You look in their eyes and you see their ambitions to be doctors and business people, and it just inspires you that they are willing not to be suppressed by Donald Trump. Their dreams are still alive. And that's why I've been committed and now have succeeded to make sure they get in-state tuition and financial aid so that they can go to college. And it makes me crazy. It just makes me nuts to see Donald Trump use them as a poker chip. He's using these children as a poker chip to try to get his nutty wall. And even the Republicans in Congress know that that wall is a waste of money for a vanity project. So we need to solve that. And then ultimately, we do need comprehensive immigration reform in the United States, which means that the people who have been here, who are parts of our community, who are co-workers, and their kids are going to soccer practice, and they're paying their taxes, and they're staying out of trouble, they need a path to citizenship. And we ought to have a way to do it in this country. Now, this does come back to an earlier point, though. If we are going to achieve this, we can't let Mitch McConnell stop comprehensive immigration reform with the filibuster. And this theme ties from all the things we want to solve in here. So I stand by my position. I hope we get this job done.
During the Obama administration, the Gang of Eight put together an immigration plan that I understand 68 senators voted for it, and there were paths to citizenship and dreamer protection, but Paul Ryan's House blocked it. Is that a plan that could be a starting point again?
Yeah, I haven't looked at that for some time, so I won't give it the absolute blue ribbon seal of approval, but some of the broad outlines, as I recalled it, made some sense. We need to give a path to citizenship. We need to end the inhumanity. We need to get dreamers back to where they should be. And that's kind of where I am. So I won't give you a yes or no totally because I can't remember exactly what was in it. But I do believe the country needs this. Look, the foundation, we're a hugely successful agricultural community in the state of Washington. And now I'm not happy that we've lost a lot of markets because of Trump's trade war. So we can't sell our markets overseas. And the people who are, most of the people in the ag industry are folks who've, been refugees at one point in their life. The foundation of our food is these folks. And I believe these are people we ought to be embracing and protecting. And I believe this for a long time. I'm going to tell you two stories if I can, if you let me digress. When I was a young legislator in 1989, I represented a Republican district in eastern Washington in a small town called Selah, Washington. And a bill came up to give farm workers unemployment compensation, which they did not have at the time. And I was advised to vote against this by all the pundits because, none of the farm workers at that time, or almost none of them, actually had the right to vote. And a lot of the farmers weren't wild about paying a little bit more for unemployment compensation. But to me, it was inhumane that the people who put food on your table that you don't treat with a little bit of respect. So I voted for that and I got reelected. And I've never regretted that vote. But here's another story. Skip 6 years later, I was a freshman congressman from a Republican district again. And a bill came up to ban assault weapons. And I knew if I voted to ban assault weapons, I would lose my seat. It was a very conservative, rural, agricultural area. And there was only 3 more votes it would take to pass that. But I went ahead and voted to ban assault weapons. I lost my seat, but I have never regretted that vote for 1 second. I've always believed that was the right vote. And now we got the NRA on the run in Washington. We've passed 3 major gun legislations, some by initiative, and we need to have the NRA on the run in America. So I'm looking forward to that. Yes.
So your education plan, you talked about your education plan. What about college tuition and the terrible burden that so many graduates have? And so do you have some remedies for that?
Yes, and personal experience. I left college twice, essentially because I ran out of money, once at Stanford and once at the University of Washington. So I'm sort of sensitive to this issue. We have now achieved what the New York Times called a game changer in the ability to help college students pay for college. We know the debt burden they have is ruinous. We know that access to college is very important in ending the racial disparity that we have. So we have essentially provided financial aid that provides free college. Essentially, it makes it affordable to everyone. If you want to go to college, we have a financial aid package that will make this affordable for you, particularly to make sure it's absolutely free for those who really need it to be free. And the way we financed this was not on the backs of working people, but we put a tax on big banks and big tech companies to pay for this, which was the right way to pay for it. So we need, I think, to emulate that on a national level. I'm happy to think about debt relief in some measurable way that's specific to people's circumstances. But I also want to say this. I think we have made a little bit of a mistake in America by telling our children that if they don't get a college degree, they're failures. And I believe that's a mistake. So we've embarked in a program, we call it Career Connects, where we want to make sure that we've got a career option available for you, even if you don't want to go to college, which basically means we want you to have apprenticeship programs available in all kinds of technical degrees in healthcare and insurance and pharmaceuticals and computer programming. And now we've graduated, or we've had our first class, actually we're going to our 3rd class of apprentices who are 17 and 18 and 19. 70% of the teenagers in Switzerland are in paid apprenticeships, essentially when they're teenagers. And as a result, you just don't have any unemployment in 20 and 21-year-olds. And I think this is a model we need to think about. So we're helping all the kids, not just those bound for college.
I have a new question that takes you back to the climate. So your views on the price of carbon, and that proposition failed in Washington, did it? Is there a reason for that you want to tell us about?
Yes, there was an initiative. Actually, there's been 2 initiatives to put a price on carbon in Washington. Neither one of them passed. They went down pretty heavily, actually. And one of the reasons is the oil and gas industry spent $32 million creating confusion about the nature of the initiative. And so it did not pass. And I learned from that experience. One of the things I learned is that if you lose once, you just got to get back in the saddle again very, very quickly. Because I've learned the single most important renewable energy source in America is the power of perseverance. So about a week after that went down, I came back with 5 bills in the legislature that in combination would achieve the same level of pollution reduction as that initiative. I'm happy to tell you that we passed 4 of them, and we've now got 80%. We have 100%. We have 80% of all we wanted during the initiative. We've got 100% clean electrical grid bill. It's one of the best in the nation, in part because it embeds ideas of environmental justice so everybody can move forward, including communities of poverty and color and indigenous communities, and we make sure we have union-paid jobs when we do this. We've passed the best energy efficiency bill in the United States, the first bill in the country to require retrofitting of commercial buildings. We passed a bill to outlaw superpollutants, and a bill to have a new incentive program for help people get access to electric cars. And I am on the cusp of achieving 100% because I have an executive order I put in place, and if the state Supreme Court makes the decision that I believe they should make, we'll have basically 100% of that job done. So we're doing great things in Washington State. But there is a central thing that all of us, I think, need to understand. This beast is moving a lot faster than we thought it was just a few years ago. And all of us have to up our game. So we've done fantastic things in the state of Washington. But frankly, we need to do more because the science every month is coming in to suggest this is moving much faster than we thought. We thought that when the permafrost melted and released gigatons of methane, this could be cataclysmic because methane is 15 to 30 times worse than a molecule of carbon dioxide. And there's gigatons of methane in the tundra, in the permafrost. So the scientists told us that, if we're not careful, that could start happening in 2090. So that could be really a game changer. Venus is not a pleasant place to be with that type of gas in the atmosphere. The problem is last month there was a new paper reported showing that we're now seeing significant melting of the permafrost in the higher latitudes. This is a sort of Venusian horizon that we just can't accept. So the message is whatever we're doing as city council people and leaders of the Sustainable Caucus here and as presidential candidates, we just got to up our game. But the good news, we can do this, and this might be the last comment I want to make it on climate change. I was with David Wallace Wells. He wrote a book called The Uninhabitable Earth, and it's a pretty amazing scientific treatise about what we're facing. The title says what we're facing in the next century if we do not act. And I was on a panel with him, and somebody asked him, how do you get through the day? Aren't you just clinically depressed, when you see what we're facing? And what he said was compelling to me. He says, no, you got to understand, my book is an optimistic book because it is not a book about an asteroid heading to Earth that we can't do anything about. What it is a book about what we can do. And it's a recognition that our fate is in our own hands here. This is our own destiny. We are capable of saving ourselves and our kids and our grandchildren. We have done this technological transformation before. We recognize the inherent entrepreneurial and inventive skill set of the American people. All we need is a spark of inspiration. I want to be the spark plug, so that's why I'm here.
So finally, I understand that you do have other places to go, people to see, and things to do. But finally, many of us are concerned about the distraction that the person in the White House who's there temporarily is creating as far as these young congresswomen, all of the hatred, and how do we then get ahead of that message so that we can show that really our party is united behind these and working on these important issues. So we really want that unification. So what do you suggest to us, besides the fact we've already sent 10,000 letters to swing state lapsed Democrats?
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. And
Yes.
we're on the road to doing far more.
Thank you.
Yes.
By
So
the way,
help us.
You helped, I just talked to a woman, I can't remember her name at the moment. She helped elect my state senator that gave me the majority in the Washington State Senate. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Well, as far as how to be unified, I think it's important for all of us to just internalize that no matter who our favorite candidate is, and if they don't win, and candidate B is not exactly what we were all looking, that we just internalize that we're going to be unified, and you just make that commitment because there's no other option. Look, it's like Churchill said about victory against Hitler. He said victory is the only option because without victory, there's no survival. So we just need to internalize that. And I think I think as far as our strategy and how to win, though, just one thought. We know the anger we have felt of the palpable and obvious racism of the president in the last couple of weeks. It is stunningly injurious. It has created such pain in Americans. I have a woman I work with in my capital, and she She just obtained her citizenship on July 4th. And she's very proud of that. She was from a Caribbean nation. She's a wonderful woman. And when she heard Donald Trump say that, you know, she was in tears. It's like he was talking about her. She just became a citizen on July 4th. And it was like he was talking to her. It's not about the 4 members of the U.S. Congress. It's about all Americans. And all Americans were victims of those comments. And that is what's so disturbing about this. So, but here's the point I want to make. I think it is important not to let our anger blind us to our job. And our job is to create a positive vision of economic growth and educational achievement for kids, and transportation systems that are good, and clean air laws that give people a chance to breathe, to make sure people understand that we do have a positive message for their futures. People already know about Donald Trump. Frankly, there's not a lot of explaining we need to do. And if we stick to what we did this year, I was chair of the Democratic Governors Association this year, we won 7 Democratic governors, 5 in the Midwest. We won Wisconsin, Michigan, Minnesota, Illinois, and Kansas. Don't tell me that we don't know how to win in the Midwest. We understand if you go to Americans with a message of job creation and ending income inequality and helping people get health care and making sure we have good teachers in our classroom and having a way to build transportation infrastructure and creating a way to take care of their long-term care needs, we're going to do really, really well. So early to bed, early to rise, work like hell and organize. Thanks a lot. Let's go elect a president.
Thank you.